family, and I see Jerry getting ready to come on up, maybe? Awesome. Jerry Grimm. Any other Gertrude descendants who are going to come up? Just be ready if you have one.
We'll be gentle.
Thank you. Thank you. In my generation, cousin generations, there were 15 of us cousins, and my two brothers and I are the only two that are left, three that are left, and they were born when my grandmother, about the time my grandmother died, so they never knew her. So I'm the last person in the direct lineage to have remembered her, and I only knew her very well at all for about the first 6 years of my life. And then I was in California for a long time, and then when I came back, she died within a year of the time I came back. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit, some facts about her. She was a very happy person. She was always smiling, always laughing. She drove her car like a bat out of hell, and she and I would be in the car, and I didn't know any better, but I'm sure my parents would have been upset if they'd known what we were doing. But anyway, she got away with it. And my grandfather, Joseph Francis Bennett Jr., died in 1938, so she ran their farm in Lone Young from that time until she died. And she died, we're having trouble kind of figuring out what year she died, but she died in the mid-50s. And we were talking about alfalfa earlier today, Thomas Casad's crop, and she also grew alfalfa. She had five children. The oldest, Marguerite, was born in 1895. Then she had Joe. Then she had, who guys? I'm not sure whether she had Delmer first or Dorothy. I think she had Delmer. Then she had Dorothy. Dorothy lived in Ohio, and the Warner gang was here yesterday. I don't know if they're still here today or not, but and then last of all, Donald, who was my father. He was born in 1910. Some of her, I just want to tell you a little bit about her further. She belonged to the Aladdin Club, and probably many of you know that your grandparents or your aunts or whatever belong to the Aladdin Club. Do you know? I don't know if you know where it is, but it's probably 2 miles from Canutillo, maybe even a little less. And Mrs. Humboldt Casad was the first president of the Aladdin Club in 1913. My grandmother served as president a couple of times too. I think several members of our family did. My grandmother was obsessed with soap operas. And so every day that I was there during the week, we would listen to The Romance of Helen Trent. I know you've all heard about that. You know it? Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. And then we'd listen to, I think it's either My Girl Sunday or My Gal Sunday. Does that make any? Anyway, they were each 15 minutes long, and we sat there at lunch, ate quietly, and listened to the soaps. So that was kind of interesting. My grandmother belonged to the Unity Church in El Paso, and that church had a woman pastor, which I think kind of shows my grandmother's independence. She was that sort of person. She used to have us all for dinner on Sunday. Anybody that was in town came to her, who was a member of the family, came to her house for dinner. And she'd always put on a big spread, and we'd talk and enjoy each other. And I think I was not only the youngest child there, but probably the only one when I was a little girl. But I always enjoyed going there for dinner on Sunday. After dinner, we would all adjourn to her front porch that was a screened-in porch, and everybody'd sit down. And the family members were wonderful storytellers. And what they generally talked about was Southwestern history. Not necessarily in their own generation, but even back a couple of generations. I may be saying something that I have made up in my head, Rick, so you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong about this. I remember my grandmother telling a story about herself when she was 8 years old in 1883. The story was that the farmers in the Mesilla Valley got a message that the Indians were coming down, marauding in the upper valley. And so the women and children were all sent away so they wouldn't be affected by this. They were sent to Soledad Canyon. Has anybody ever heard of that place? Yes. I think it's been closed for probably 50 years. It was a bombing site for a long time, I think, wasn't it? Air Force used it. Anyway, they all went up to Soledad Canyon, and I'm not sure how long they were up there, but they could look down and see the Indians burning as they went through the valley. That story really touched me, even as a little tiny girl, and I've always been interested in Indian history ever since that happened. So I just wanted to share that with you because we're all pretty close to that time. We're not terribly far away from it, but you know, when your grandmother experienced it, it makes you feel like you have too, and I've just always remembered it. Anyway, she was a great lady, and as all the Casads were, all the Casads women and men, and I was just happy to be able to share that with y'all today. Thanks.